How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. I've used it sounds like every streaming application except Facebook Live, so and StreamYard.
Uh, this is an alternative to, I think most people probably use Zoom to stream on Facebook Live, but I've had pretty good luck with this application, and you can stream it with, I think, up to 10 people at a time on Facebook Live.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kevin. I just went live on Facebook, so we should be broadcasting to the Catskills Visitor Center Facebook. And let me pull up our questions here. And it looks like we have a viewer. I'm going to just wait for a moment to see if we can get some more viewers.
Sounds good.
I like this bicycle poster that you sent me with kind of the bicycles through the ages, how they've evolved through the ages.
Yeah, I saw your, I saw one of your questions, about different types of bikes, and it's there's been this explosion in bicycle design and manufacturing and use, and so now there's just a proliferation of so many different kinds of bicycles for every possible application under the sun. So I was trying to find something that was visual that I could show you that kind of demonstrated that.
Totally, yeah. And I was kind of just thinking about like the rudimentary categories of biking at first, and then I started to see your list, and I was like, oh yeah, Olivia, there are way more than just the few that I was thinking that there were,
and more all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Try bikes and fixies and so many different kinds of bicycles.
Yes. Oh, that's true. I forgot you added another one, fixed gear. I forgot about fixed gear.
Single speed, fixed gear. Well, I think we're going to get started here. We have a couple of viewers, and I can start by introducing us. So, hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Olivia Bernard. I work for the Catskills Center for Conservation and Development here at the Catskills Visitor Center in Mount Tremper. We talk to visitors about different things to do in the area, whether they're looking for outdoor opportunities, cultural activities, or attractions, and we talk to people about responsible recreation. Kevin Smith is the board chair of the Woodstock Land Conservancy, which is a land trust here in Ulster County, serving Woodstock and the surrounding eastern Catskills. He currently chairs the Ulster County Trails Advisory Committee to the county legislator. He is a volunteer steward with the Ashokan Rail Trail Stewards Program. He's a member of Fats and the Cats Mountain Bike Club and Team Overlook Mountain Bikes in Woodstock, New York. He's co-chair of the grassroots advocacy group Friends of the Catskill Mountain Rail Trail. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know about the Catskill Mountain Rail Trail.
The Ashokan Rail Trail is the first rail trail conversion on the Ulster Delaware, the abandoned Ulster Delaware Rail Corridor, to actually come to fruition and go to construction and opened last October.
Oh, I've of course heard of the Ashokan Rail Trail. I hadn't heard of it referred to as the Catskill Mountain Rail Trail before, but that's the Friends group, of course. So Kevin Smith was pivotal in getting the Ashokan Rail Trail started, which we love here in Ulster County. It goes for about 11 to 12 miles, either from east to west or west to east, from Woodstock to Boyceville. Really terrific area for biking, for walking. So really a gem of the area here. We love sending people there, talk to people. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you came to be in this area and some of the other kinds of work that you do for the Woodstock Land Conservancy.
Sure. My wife and I moved to the area in around 1985 or so. I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm not from the Northeast or from the Catskills. I grew up in in a university town about 60 miles west of Chicago. Northern Illinois is flat as a pancake, as far as you can see in every direction. And that's where I learned to ride a bike. Like most kids in my generation, we were highly mobile. And by the age of 7 or so, completely bikes were freedom. Bikes meant we could jump on our bikes alone or with friends and go explore other parts of town or go to local parks or go get into mischief somewhere or another. Find where the pickup baseball game was that day, and just loved riding bikes until just about my 16th birthday when I got my driver's license. And at that point, I went from being a totally avid bike rider, using my bike as my basic transport, to being a automobile driver. And for a number of years, rarely rode a bicycle. And it wasn't really until my wife and I moved back to Woodstock, and we settled here. And one of my friends, after I'd been here for a few years, one of my friends said, "Hey, let's go ride bikes out to Mount Trimper." And so I pulled my wife's beat up Moto Pecan out of the shed, 3 sizes too small for me. And we rode 212 out to Mount Trimper and then rode back on the Wittenberg Hills, and I felt like I'd climbed Mount Everest or something. And that was kind of the beginning of my bike riding and rediscovering the bicycle, and discovering over many, many years all that our area has to offer, the roads and streets and towns and byways and trails through our mountains and valleys and forests. And I've kind of never looked back.
Totally. The challenge is part of the fun, right? With all of the
Yeah.
hills and there are flat areas of the Catskills too, which is really nice. You have that blend of kinds of trails. Well, thanks for telling us a little bit about how you came to be in this area and what you enjoy about it. I thought it might be nice in the beginning to define some of what some of the big cycling terms are for viewers.
Sure.
So specifically when we're talking about road biking, the way I think about it is like skinny tire bikes on pavement. What else should people know about road biking?
Well, road bikes, traditionally people do think about skinny tire racing style bikes with drop bars. That's kind of the association with road biking. But especially around here, roads are major. That's the most prevalent facility we have to ride bicycles on, for those that are willing to brave our roads and capable to climb some of the hills. I think a lot of people now use various width tires on our roads. So they ride things from even road biking, racing bikes have started to go to wider tires for a number of reasons. And I have something called a gravel bike, which even my road tires on that bike are much wider than what people would generally think of for a racing bike. But gravel tires are almost like mountain bike width for tires, and they can have very aggressive treads on them. And I like them on a lot of our roads because some of our roads have varying levels of paving. Sometimes it's really good, but sometimes it's not so good. And the shoulder is a really good place to ride, especially if there's a lot of traffic. And with those kind of tires, you're not really limited to having to stay right on the pavement the way you are on a traditional racing bike. But you have hybrid bikes. They're also in that same kind of tire width.
Yeah.
A lot of people ride mountain bike style bikes around here with full out trail tires on them. And then it goes from there. Everything up to full fat bikes with 4-inch or 5-inch wide tires. Yeah.
The sky is the limit. Those are fun in the wintertime and on dirt trails. And have you ridden a fat bike before?
I own a fat bike.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a joke among cyclists is that, is that over time you end up collecting bikes um, for all of the different kinds of, that are kind of optimal for the different kinds of riding that you do. And in the wintertime around here, if you have real snow, you can take fat bikes on the trails and where you could not with a traditional mountain bike tire, the width is not wide enough to have traction and control. But with a fat bike tire, you can go out and just have tons of fun and ride a lot of the trails, mountain bike trails, cross country ski trails that allow for fat bikes. So out at Bel Air Ski Center, there's a wonderful cross country ski trail system there. Really fun on mountain bikes. And As well in the summertime, but in the wintertime when there's sufficient snow, fat biking is great out there.
And some of the other ski resorts have trails for mountain biking and fat tire biking too, like Hunter, I think, does as well. And
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with what they're doing more recently. But yeah, and there's we do I'll do lots of adventure rides. We call them adventure rides, where part of the ride will be on pavement, part of it might be on a gravel road, part of it might be on a rail trail facility, and then part of it might go into a network like Bluestone Wild Forest at Onteora Lake or Jockey Hill, or up in Bel Air, those kinds of places, and so then you get this whole mix of different kinds of riding and different terrain.
nice. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of wild forest land and where people are able to bike a little bit later, but I was wondering if you could talk to folks about kind of people who are just getting started with biking, or if they're just getting back to riding after many years of not riding, what suggestions you have in this area.
Yeah, I think it's such a great sport, and maybe we could start by just acknowledging the fact that because of the pandemic this year, bike sales were already growing in this country. It's increasingly being seen as a really healthy activity that people can engage in over many years into their elderly years if they have some kind of joint issues that prevent them from being able to run or walk for long distances. Cycling often is a activity that they can do, and then with the and then as well for sustainable communities, to lower issues of congestion in our local towns and the city of Kingston, to lower greenhouse gas emissions. Bikes become a really wonderful complementary way of getting around, getting to work, school, shopping, socializing, recreation. So when the pandemic happened this year and the shutdown ensued, all of a sudden, people had very few places that they could actually go. And our trails, all our mountain trails, as well as what we call our shared use trails, our wide, flat rail trails and other shared use trails, all of a sudden saw this incredible surge in visitors. And there was a coincident surge in bicycle sales. Nationally, bicycle sales went up 400%. And locally, all of our bike shops, which were deemed essential businesses by the governor's executive order, they were going flat out, even having to add staff and add staff hours to keep up with demand for repairs. People were pulling bikes out of their cellars and their garages, that hadn't been ridden in 20 years, and they were coming out to our trails and coming out to the Ashokan Rail Trail is the one that I was the most intimately familiar with in terms of watching this surge in bicycle riders. And it was really wonderful to see people rediscovering their love of biking and doing it in a really beautiful, natural environment that was safe, it was open, it was completely protected for those of the people viewing who are not familiar with the Ashokan Rail Trail, as you said, it's 11.5 miles. It's very, very unusual among trail facilities in that it is completely without any cross streets. There are zero intersections. You could, if you have a young child who's just getting into bike riding and loves to ride, you could literally turn them loose at Woodstock Dyke at the eastern end of the trail and let them go, because they're not going to hit a cross street where there's traffic coming. I think this speaks to the value of these shared use trails, of rail trails, as a great place for people who are just starting to ride or getting back to riding after a long period of time and don't feel that comfortable yet, and don't feel like they may be ready to brave traffic, being on, kind of both navigating riding a bicycle again and having to negotiate traffic on top of it. So a rail trail is a great place to do that. And fortunately, in Ulster County and the Catskills, we're increasingly developing a very robust network of shared use trails and rail trails. So we have an increasing number of facilities where people can do that.
Yeah, it's true. Where I live in Kingston, there are a couple that are already there and are getting better all the time. More maintained and expanded.
The Kingston Point Rail Trail from Midtown down to the roundout, and then out via the trolley path out to Kingston Point. That's a great project. We are partners with our colleagues at the Kingston Land Trust, one of our sister land trusts, and they're supporting their vision for the Kingston Green Line, which is this system of both rail trails and bike lanes, protected bike lanes on Broadway. One is under construction right now, and other bike facilities in the city of Kingston. And that's now going to be part of the Empire State Trail as well, which maybe we can touch on a little bit later.
Yeah, that's been making headlines a lot lately. And I see the signs in Kingston. It's wonderful. New Paltz, it goes through New Paltz.
That's right. Yep.
Lots of places to get on that trail in this area. Going back to some of the questions on here, and that was a really great point that you made about beginners and the Ashokan Rail Trail and how it's uninterrupted by traffic. That's kind of a beautiful thing. You don't necessarily think about, but that's huge. If people do decide to go out on roads to road bike or to use other styles of bikes, what would you recommend as far as etiquette for staying safe with motorists? Do you find that drivers in the area are pretty aware and looking out for bikers?
I may get criticized by some of my riding friends for saying this, but I actually think drivers are much more aware and experienced, I think, by and large. Obviously, you can have tragic exceptions to this, but by and large, we're very fortunate in Ulster County. We have a lot of work to do still, I believe, to make our roads fully safe for people on bicycles and people walking as well. But I would say by and large, drivers are fairly considerate. My personal experience during the pandemic has been that I don't think I'm imagining it. I think people have been more polite. People have been more considerate as a whole. What I would advise, first-time riders, people who are just getting out on the roads for the first time, find someplace that that is a familiar place. Maybe it's a neighborhood with a series of streets in your town or in the city of Kingston that's a fairly quiet neighborhood where there's not a lot of traffic, and what traffic there is travels at a pretty slow rate. And ride there. Or if you're in one of our more rural parts of the county, we have a largest county in the state geographically, then find a back road. We have this incredible diversity of back roads scattered throughout the county, many of which don't have that much traffic. And find one that works for you, that you're familiar with where the hills are, where the turns are, where the cross streets are, and ride there first. Stay to the right, really important. And if you're riding with a friend, bicycles are allowed to ride two abreast on our roads. However, if a car comes to overtake you from behind, you're required to single up. And it's really important for cyclists to be as considerate of motorists as the other way around. So the more that you can pay attention, put a mirror on your bike so that you can, you're aware when there's a car coming and you can get over ahead of time and give them room. Put a bell on your bike. Bells are required under New York State law. Bells on bicycles are required on our public roads. And I was too cool for that. I was like a road biker and a mountain biker, and that's for other people. For people with upright bikes with baskets, that are going to the store. That's not for me. Well, what I discovered after we opened the Ashokan Rail Trail and being a steward on that trail is we had a lot of people out there, and it was really important to have some way of alerting people that were in front of you, whether they were moms walking with a stroller or two friends, walking together deep in conversation, or other people on bikes, to let them know that you're coming in such a way that they don't jump 3 feet off the ground because you yelled at them from 10 feet away and they had no idea you were there. A bell is a great way of alerting someone to your presence from quite a distance, and that gives them time to assimilate what it is that they heard, where it's coming from, and what it probably means. Oh, there's somebody coming. We can move over to the side of the trail to let them pass. So I've just become a big convert in bells. I think everybody should have them. I put them on my trail bike now. So when I'm on single track trails at Onteor Lake or Jockey Hill, and I see some hikers on the trail, I can let them know I'm coming in time, because it's a little more difficult on a single track trail, especially now with social distancing. Everybody wants to be polite. I just believe that we all do. And part of being considerate and being polite is kind of learning how to let people know in a way and in a time frame that they can make decisions to move this way or move that way, and leave you space to social distance as you go by. So I use it on my trail bike now all the time. Yeah,
that's great. And I think even like to alert motorists sometimes, a bell is helpful.
Someone that's very true.
Pulling out of a driveway and they don't know that you're there. Just ringing a bell is a really like loud way to alert them that you're there, but also Absolutely. Like a friendly way. That's a great point about bells. Don't be too cool for bells, folks. Get a bell for your bicycle. And thanks for talking about drivers. I don't think it's just you. I do think that the times that we're living in has made people more aware in general.
And there are bike education courses. My colleague and friend Tom Polk, who's associated with the YMCA of Kingston and Ulster County in Kingston, he runs bike education programs for kids. The Woodstock Land Conservancy, we were fortunate enough to sponsor and provide some funding for that program several years ago, along with another program he does called Bike Mechanics, which is for kind of teenager into young adult ages. And those two programs are great. He serves a lot of kids right in the city of Kingston, including in some of the underserved parts of that community. And the kids in the Bike It program learn the rules of the road for cyclists, and they're learning this while they're in elementary and middle school, and they travel all around the city of Kingston, and they go out to the rail trails. So they're getting a chance to both apply what they've learned under supervision. And Tom is a certified, he's a certified bike education instructor. Um, and they are also learning the habits of healthy activity and riding a bicycle, and learning that although they live in the city, that Kingston has this amazing resource of these natural areas and recreation areas that are surrounding the city in most directions, and they know how to access them. And hopefully that will become a lifelong habit for them, and that they'll be doing this on their own before long. Maybe going and doing a day trip to Mohonk Preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Like I go on adventure rides with my friends, that they'll start doing that with their friends. And yeah, like that.
That's great. That's the YMCA.
Yeah, YMCA of Kingston and Ulster County. Oh, and I was going to say the bike mechanics course, Bill Denter of Overlook Bikes
Oh
in
yeah.
Woodstock is one of the main instructors for that class. And what they do is they register as many kids as they're going to have, and then they locate a number of bikes that fit those kids size wise and ability wise, and then and these are bikes that are broken, that have been donated or somehow come into their possession. And each kid is, at the beginning of the class, at the first session, is given a bike
Wow.
that is the bike that they are going to work on every class. And at the end of the classes, that bike will be in working order, and they get the bike. If they complete the class, they get that bike. That's their bike because they fixed it and made it roadworthy. And they get that pride of having mastered that, and then being able to take that with them. Sorry about that ringer. That's going to go off for a minute.
That's okay. That's wonderful. What's the name of that program?
I believe he just calls it the bike mechanics program. I can't remember if there's another name for that. But again, YMCA of Kingston and Ulster County. Yeah.
And Bill Denter, we're a big fan of his and his shop in Woodstock, Overlook Mountain Bikes. A great place to start if people who are watching are looking for a place to purchase a bike, for advice about biking. Just a really good resource in the area.
Yeah, Billy is, he's the busiest he's been in the 23 years that he's owned that shop. And I think the shop existed under the prior owner and founder, Gene Gironda, for another 7 years before that. So this is like it's either the 30th or the 31st year of Overlook Bikes. And what these brick and mortar bike shops, these small independent bike retailers and bike repair shops, they're like little hubs of the biking community, or of large portions of the biking community. And Billy and the other bike shop owners that I know in Rosendale, Christian Favada at Table Rock, Steve Leibowitz at Revolution Bikes in Midtown Kingston, and his wife Sam. Yeah, they love cycling. They love all kinds of cycling, and they don't care if you're bringing in your $50 bike that you pulled out of the garage that's got two flat tires and the gears don't work and the chain's rusted. If that's what you want them to fix and they can make it roadworthy for what you want to do with it, they're
Yeah.
just as excited as if you just plunked down $5,000 for a high-end racing bike so you could go enter some race someplace.
Yeah.
So, and that's the cool thing about cycling. And we were talking about all these different kinds of bikes, is there's something for everybody. And I can't say enough about cycling as it's such a great way to build community and have social connection with people. And the health benefits of cycling have been increasingly quantified in studies over many years now, and including connected to building bike lane facilities, building trails. And one of the most famous studies out of Nebraska states that for every dollar spent on building constructing a rail trail, $2.94 comes back in direct medical benefit savings because of the increase in health. Yeah. So these are major health facilities. They're not just recreational facilities, along with all the other benefits we get. If I can just say one other thing about economic development, especially our rail trail facilities, what we're seeing along the Ashokan is in that whole 11.5 mile stretch of Route 28 and beyond it at either end. And again, this was very evident during the pandemic that some of those stores that remained open, whether they were essential businesses or food facilities, restaurant facilities, Bread Alone in Boysville, they've seen a huge jump in business since the Ashokan opened, and that continued to the degree that they were able to manage contactless or low contact sales during the pandemic. Bistro to Go, same thing in the town of Kingston, just east of the Ashokan. All of these places that we're seeing new businesses that are coming into that section of Route 28 and wanting to open new businesses, and including things like bike rentals and so forth. So we're very excited about helping to build, we call it the Trail Town model, which was developed in Pennsylvania, the Great Allegheny Passage rail trail. They developed this Trail Town model of helping to educate communities for how they could tie into these trail facilities that came right through their towns or next to their towns, and really make sure that users of the trails were aware of what resources were available for them in the local community: a museum, a place to get to refuel, to fill your water bottles, and a place to get your bike fixed, a hotel, an Airbnb, whatever it was that you,
I mean, after the rail trail was built, but before that too, but I think with the Catskills Visitor Center, we were talking about a long-term plan of having a bike pump with a repair station, and that's a small way that it impacts development, but we've seen it, like you said, in huge ways that it's impacted businesses and how it helps people's health as well. That's huge. The more rail trails, the better, for sure.
Yeah. In fact, we're mentioning Bread Alone. They've been over several years now. They've been big champions of the rail trail, of the Ashokan Rail Trail especially, and they've been in planning stages of facility, talking about expanding their facility in Boysville, and in part they are talking about doing that because it is because in part the additional people that are coming, that are on their way to the rail trail or on their way back from the rail trail, is a great justification for that. Yeah.
Wow. If people are interested in getting involved in volunteering for the rail trail, or volunteering for the programs that you were mentioning at the YMCA, do you know of volunteer opportunities in the area right now?
Well, we're always looking for stewards at the Ashokan Rail Trail. We have an amazing core of volunteer stewards there. This is a program that was started when the trail started before the trail opened last year. We anticipated the trail was going to be very popular, and because the Ashokan Rail Trail is a partnership between Ulster County and New York City DEP, and because it runs literally on the shores and through the forest lands right next to the Ashokan Reservoir, a terminal drinking water reservoir for New York City's drinking water supply, it's really important that New York City DEP's water protection requirements really be met. So our stewards have been stellar at going out, being ambassadors for the trail, talking with people, advising them of the rules, asking them not to leave the trail unless they have a permit and they're on their way down to fish or hunt, which is they are allowed to use the trail if they're moving to or fro. Um, but and just generally doing all the things that any trail stewards do on so many of our trails in the area, including the Catskills Center. I know is very involved in several of the high use trails in the Catskill Forest Preserve. This last Sunday, I was on a big ride out southwest of the reservoir, and we ended up coming back on the Peekamoose Watson Hollow Road. And as we went by one of the trailhead parking lots, there were the Catskill Center folks there tabling and making sure that they were educating people about this wonderful resource and hopefully teaching them why it's so important to take care of it and respect it and not overuse it, not contribute to the overuse.
Yeah. Yeah, at least leaving it the way that we find it, if not better, right?
Yes, leave no trace, carry in, carry out. Yep.
Definitely important, super important, especially as the outdoors see more use, which we love, but we want to make sure that that's balanced with good practices.
So you had asked how people could get involved. I don't have the number right in front of me, but if they contact Woodstock Land Conservancy, www.woodstocklandconservancy.org. We can put them in contact with our steward volunteer coordinator, Kim Daly. She's fantastic. And we're doing kind of rolling trainings right now. People can set their own hours. We don't ask people to slot into fixed schedules. And so far it's really worked out to do that because people can come out when they know they have time. And for some people, that's the same time every day, every week. For some folks that varies.
Yeah, no, that's great. So if people are interested, that's woodstocklandconservancy.org. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know we said 3 to 3:30. There was a question on here that I really, really wanted to ask you too, which was if you have a favorite memory of biking in the Catskills.
Oh yeah, I saw that and I was starting to answer that. I have a couple. And I guess this is a way of saying, how this area is so rich for biking. And I have so many amazing memories from riding here. And I'm going to speak especially about the Catskill region here. We live in Woodstock. We're right kind of on the edge of the Catskills, literally. And as you go north into Greene County, west into Delaware County, Schoharie County, there's just these amazing places to ride. And for those people who do love to ride and have the physical ability to go longer distances, and even if you just are going for a short, a 5-mile ride or 10-mile ride, there's just some amazing places that you can go in this region. And I think it's a great way to experience. It's somewhere between being in a car and walking. You're outside, but you're moving faster than you move when you're walking, and you get to experience kind of the topography of our area. You know a hill so intimately compared with when you're in an internal combustion vehicle and all you're doing is touching the accelerator, or if you're in an electric vehicle, touching the accelerator so the electrons flow. But I would say my most, one of my favorite memories is up in the Millbrook. Behind Bel Air, you go up the Dry Brook and then the Millbrook, and there's a road there. The very first really big adventure ride I did was a road called Cross Mountain Road. That's a gravel road that goes up and over the ridge and drops into the Beaver Kill. And Yeah, I'll never forget the first time we did that, and kind of that sense of like not quite knowing. This was we didn't have GPS apps on our phone at that point, so there was, kind of looking at a map before we went and hoping that the road actually connected where we thought it did. Those are the kinds of places that you can discover riding in the Catskills, and there's a lot of them. And I just encourage people to get out and ride safely,
Right.
ride within yourself, and make sure that you have that wherever you're going, that you have what you need. That there's a reason that we wear these jerseys that have three pockets in the back, so that you make sure you've got the fixings. If you get a flat tire, that you can repair your tire, that you've got enough water. If you're going a longer distance, that you've got food, or where you're going to stop to refuel. And if the weather is cool or there's a chance of rain, you got a rain jacket, because you don't want to get caught up in the hills around here in a driving rainstorm. If it's 60 degrees, you get cold real fast. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And another thing to note about that, you were mentioning like the Dry Brook area, not expecting that you're going to have cell phone service in areas of the Catskills.
Very good point.
So bringing a map, or, like studying the heck
Yep.
out of the map before you hit the road,
Yep.
because oftentimes your GPS won't work if you're out in those areas. But that adds to the adventure, and if you're informed in where you are, and like you said, have the supplies that you need.
Yeah.
That sounds.
And there are some very good apps now, and
Yeah.
people who are looking to do those kinds of rides, especially where there's no cell service or where it's marginal or goes in and out. The newer GPS apps, you can actually download the place you want to ride that day. Those maps can get downloaded onto your phone. So if you don't have service, you can still locate yourself. Yeah.
I put some questions in this doc that I sent to you, and asked about your favorite apps, and you mentioned Strava to log rides, Ride with GPS for planning.
Yeah. I like doing routes on Ride with GPS. That's the one that I know the best. Strava is kind of basically the social media app for people that want to log their rides and their swims and their runs and share them with their friends and see what other people are doing. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, there's some good sides and bad sides to it probably, but it's pretty amazing to see how many people. I think it actually has. There's a kind of a peer. I don't want to call it peer pressure, but there's a shared community there. I can see, oh, so and so went here today, so and so went there. They did this, they did that amount of distance. Oh, wow, they checked out that new trail, or they did that road loop that they've been talking about exploring. I want to go check that out. So it's pretty amazing.
Another good resource for finding new bike routes.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to take up more of your time, but thank you so much for speaking with me today about cycling in the Catskills. I feel like I could talk to you for a long time about this topic. There are a lot of different things to cover, but I really appreciate you taking the time, and for the work that you do in this region to
Thank you.
keep trails.
Yeah, I'd be glad to come back sometime, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the mountain bike areas, because I think you started to ask about that earlier, and
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to it. So
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Is there something we can kind of
Yeah.
say?
I mean, just real quickly, we're, as with rail trails, we're starting to develop a really nice, diverse set of places where people can go and ride mountain bike. Close to Kingston, right in the edge of the Catskill Park and Catskill Forest Preserve, right in the town of Kingston off Route 28 at Onteora Lake. The Bluestone Wild Forest is becoming a very popular area, not just for mountain biking, but for people that want to swim there. People fish there. Lots of hiking. There's a handicap, the ADA accessible day use area there with a ADA fishing dock It's a wonderful facility that DEC has created there, and as well, we were involved in a project with our partners at Open Space Institute and New York State DEC. That's in the Cats Mountain Biking Club, and a great trail design building firm, Tajas Trails, Eddie Walsh out of Accord, um, to to build and improve and create essentially a connected multi-use trail system, including some trails that are optimized for mountain biking and optimized for people mountain biking of different levels. So I was able to take a friend of mine that doesn't ride mountain bike with his 10-year-old son and go out there and ride the short kind of beginner trails loop and beyond, so that his son could get an experience of what it's like to ride on the mountain bike trails around here. So there's about 26 miles of connected trails there now between Onteora Lake and Jockey Hill, which is accessed off of Jockey Hill Road. And those areas are now connected for the first time. Right at the end of 2019, the trail connection was made across Maury Hill Road.
Oh, wow. And you would call that kind of on the beginner to moderate side for
you have something for everybody there. There's very technical expert level trails there, and there's a lot of what I would call intermediate, beginner to intermediate expert, some solid intermediate things. And then like this loop off Moore Hill Road called Quick Loop is a great one for beginners. It's not super long, but it's a way to get a taste. Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah. And up in Greene County, outside of Windham and Hinsonville, is Elm Ridge Wild Forest, and that's another DEC wild forest with a substantial trail network that's hugely popular. And it also has multi-use trails that are optimized for mountain biking, there's a term we call flow trails. These are trails that are a little bit wider, and they have sometimes they'll have bermed bank turns. So there's a little bit of easier ways to negotiate the curves. Our Catskill trails are rocky and rooty and steep, and so it makes it a little bit easier, especially for beginners and intermediates, and it creates a really nice, fun experience. Yeah. And then out in I'm trying to think, in the town of Wawarsing, right on the edge of the Catskill Forest Reserve, there's a town park called Lippman, Lippman, Lippman Park, that has a great network of mountain bike trails, including some flow trails that were built by volunteers. And that has connections off the backside into the Verneuil Kill State Forest and the Sundown Wild Forest in the Forest Preserve. So we've got some great trails. Bel Air has the cross-country ski and mountain bike trail network, which we're hoping to expand. There's a plan in place. And now they're just looking for funding to implement it on the 1,200-acre Big Indian parcel immediately adjacent to the Bel Air Ski Center intensive use area. And that plan contains cross-country ski and mountain bike trails that would potentially connect to Bel Air Ski Center trails, as well as Pine Hill Hamlet, and down to the Bel Air Beach Day use area that has picnic facilities, has the lake, obviously the swimming lake, and parking. So very excited about that whole area as well.
Yeah, Bel Air is an area where we definitely talk to people about things that they can do. There's a lot there. It's great to have that. Even just if you want some beautiful views in the fall, you can get some great foliage views from up there. It's another gem of the area for sure.
Absolutely.
We were going to talk a little bit about the Empire State Trail.
Sure.
But
sure. Happy to.
Sorry, I know we're going over time. But this is going to be completed by the end of this year, right? But I'm
Correct.
hearing.
It's a three-year project started in 2018. It's $200 million that was in the 20. I can't remember if it was just the 2018 budget or if it was parceled out over 3 years. Um, and it's a 750-mile statewide trail. It will extend from, it starts in New York City. If you're working south to north on everybody who's been to the city knows I can't remember what it's called, the Hudson River Greenway Park on the Hudson, right next to the West Side Highway. And it extends up through Albany and all the way up to Plattsburgh at the Canadian border. And in Albany, it will connect and go out to Buffalo, following the Erie Canal Path trail, which is in and of itself, I think, is 450 miles. And it's a great trail. One of the primary priorities was wherever possible to have it not be on a road. There are sections that, because of lack of alternatives, have to be next to a road, particularly up north of Albany, heading up to Plattsburgh. But in our area, because Ulster County had made such a commitment to the rail trail network, because of the walkway over the Hudson that opened, I think, in 2008, maybe, they made a decision to bring the Empire State Trail over the Hudson west into Ulster County. And on the Hudson Valley Rail Trail, it will connect from the walkway right to New Paltz. And from New Paltz, the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail goes up to Kingston. And then in Kingston, it'll use the Kingston Green Line and Kingston Point Rail Trail we mentioned earlier. And then there's a brand new 500-acre scenic Hudson property just north of Kingston Point called the Quarry Waters property. And I believe they're calling the trail I think they started construction this week. I believe it's called the Hudson Brickyard Trail. Because it goes right by the historic Hudson Brickyard property as well. And then it'll make its way up to Route 32 right before 32 joins the Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge, the entrance to the Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge. Anybody that's crossing the bridge can see that portion, the paved path on 32 joining up to the Kingston approach to the Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge is already in place. And they've narrowed the bridge and created a protected pedestrian facility on one side of the bridge, on the south side of the bridge, back over to Dutchess County. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, it'll go up through Bard College on River Road, and then it makes its way, I believe, on Route 9G, and goes by Olana. The beautiful Frederick Church Estate, where there's going to be connections back across the Hudson on the Hudson River Skywalk to the town of Catskill. And it goes up to, in Hudson, it picks up an old electric railroad corridor, the Albany Hudson Electric Railroad right of way is still there. It's a very kind of what I would call a very light utility corridor. So it's not the big huge towers, but just kind of small electric power facility. Excuse the noise there. That's my printer. And the Empire State Trail route will then follow the Hudson Albany Electric Trail almost all the way to Albany. And then it splits, one going west on the Erie Canal Path and the other going north up to Canada. It's very exciting. And, some people, one of the things we've learned about tourism and economic development and economic impacts of trails is that when you have a trail with whatever level of popularity, there'll be certain economic impacts that can be measured and calculated based on the kinds of users that come. When you have connected trails, what we call long distance trails, you start to, or destination trail networks, you start to attract a different kind of user as well. As the local users or regional users that are coming for the day, you start to attract multi-day travelers, whether they're hikers or they're cycle tourists. And they spend more money because they're staying in hotels, they're going out to museums, they're going out to art galleries and spending more time in the local communities, eating in restaurants and so forth. And so each community has this opportunity to take advantage of the Empire State running close by their communities, or even in some cases right through their communities, and tying into that kind of economic development. And it's low impact because people are walking, they're traveling by bicycle, and it's just a great, and they're improving their health as they do it. So we think it's a really light footprint, very sustainable kind of tourism that doesn't have the kind of adverse impacts that we don't want to bring to our communities. And that trail, that Empire State Trail, it will be coming right into Kingston when the Midtown Linear Park hopefully goes to construction, connecting Midtown and Uptown Kingston later this year. It'll be about 6 miles from the Empire State Rail Trail up to the beginning of the Ashokan Rail Trail. And we have very, real strong hopes that at some point in the future, we will make that connection and we will connect the Empire State Trail and the countywide trail network to the Catskill Park Route 28 communities, and really because Route 28's the most heavily trafficked way for people. That's the most common way that people access the Catskill Park is the Route 28 corridor, and we can't think of a better gateway facility than to have, in addition to for motorists, to have a way for hikers and people on bicycles to be able to access the park safely and enjoyably, and come out at the Ashokan and have those spectacular views for that first view of the mountains as you get up onto Glenford Dyke, and you get a sense of, I'm in the Catskills now. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to believe that trail is going to be done so soon, but that's super exciting. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I won't take up any more of your time, but this was wonderful, and I'm excited to hear about some of the new things that are happening in our area. And thank you very much to the viewers as well who are watching today. This has been Ask an Outdoor Expert with Kevin Smith, board chair of the Woodstock Land Conservancy, and terrific advocate for cycling and for health in this region. So thank you again, Kevin. And
you're so welcome. It's been a pleasure. Let's go for a ride.
Oh, totally. Oh,
call me.
I'll take you up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.